Bookish Betty by Liz Guthrie of Monavale, 2103. Narrated by Janine Penfold. I take a deep breath and nervously press send. My first short story written and submitted for critique in my writers group. It's only taken 65 years to get here, I laugh to myself. I've always been fascinated by words and stories. It's just ink on a page. Yet words can make you laugh, make you cry. They can educate you, open a whole new world of thinking. No Kindle for me. I like a real book I can hold. Turn those pages until the last. My love of writing and books started very young. Mum always encouraged my reading. We read a little golden book together at bedtime. I had a library of these. Pointless, really, as I always requested the same story. "Which one tonight, Dal?" Mum said. "Rin Tin Tin and the Lost Indian, please, Mum," I replied. "Again?" "Yep." Mum sighed. "Okay." Mum was bored with the same story every night, but I loved it. I could picture the characters and the setting in my mind. Rinny and Rip, his master, had such an adventure. No Barbie dolls for me. What could you do with those? Dress them up. Then what? I liked the adventure of the Rinny story. That's what I wanted, an adventure. That's what I wanted life to be. Years later, as soon as I got my driver's licence, the local library became my happy place. On a Sunday afternoon, I jumped in my Mini, then headed to the library. Mum and I discussed the fiction writers we liked, and I looked for books for both of us. I'd find a sunny corner in the library to sit, rank my pile of books, and then start the first one. Back home we'd read, then score each one. The Oxford Dictionary helped with any words I didn't understand. During these teenage years, through university and beyond, I was writing poetry and song lyrics. This writing never went beyond my notebook and a guitar-playing friend who wrote some music for some of my lyrics. But it started my lifelong love of creative writing. Working in publishing then, information technology had me writing very different material. Creative marketing copy for print or online, or technical how-to manuals in global IT. By trial and error, I learned these different writing skills, languages, and audiences. In between work and study, I loved the adventure of overseas travel. I read up on each country to try and understand the language, history and culture of the USA, Mexico, Cuba, Italy, Croatia, Greece and France. I travelled with a journal, making notes each day of where I'd been, what I'd seen, and interactions with locals. I found my sense of adventure fulfilled by travel. Travel was a different form of education, and I learned another form of creative writing. In my mid-50s, Mum had to go into care. Her dementia meant it was dangerous for her to stay in her own home, but on a good day, Mum still liked to read. I looked for books by her favourite authors and took them into her. After a couple of years, Mum's dementia had progressed, so she couldn't read more than a couple of pages before losing the thread of the story. Eventually, her reading stopped altogether. One of her life's joys was to sit with a cup of tea and a good book. A part of her life she had enjoyed for so long was gone. It diminished her life. How ironic that Mum, who had shown me a love of books, had lost her enjoyment in the written word. I felt very sad for her. Mum passed the baton in the relay. From her hand to mine, from one generation to the next. As I was approaching retirement, my thoughts once again turned to creative writing. But I wanted to do more. Not just poetry and song lyrics, but real stories. I had an idea for a novel, but zero story writing skills. I didn't know where to start. I went online and completed 2 short story writing courses, doing all the exercises to learn each step in the process. I Googled, looked at YouTube, I read books on the subject. I looked for short story collections in the library to see what worked, what style of writing appealed to me. I didn't realise it at the time, but I was finding my voice, my writing voice. I began experimenting with short stories, characters and themes. My early attempts were rubbish and were moved to my rejected folder. The rejected folder grew and grew. I joined my local writers group where members were encouraged and their stories critiqued. I listened to writers in the group who had published, how they approached their writing, their research. Where did they get their story ideas from? How did they formulate the plot? What did they do when they had writer's block? One day, walking on the beach, a story idea came to me. I didn't have my notebook with me, so rushed home and opened the laptop. I wrote free form for 2 hours. No spell check, no grammar rules, a total brain dump. It was not readable, but the story itself had promise. Over the next month, I wrote, edited, and wrote again. I thought of all the books I'd read and liked, or not, the different writing styles. The starting point was Mum's patience and encouragement, one particular little golden book, and me looking for an adventure. This is what made me. Finally, my adventure story was ready for critique. I pressed send. The end.